Hello and welcome back to the channel. A long while ago, I made a video reviewing my vintage Team Losi JrXPro, the one that I restored for the shelf, the one with the box art paint job on it. I used a Team Blue Groove body and MCI decals and talked about the story of how I got it instead of the RC10 team car from Tower Hobbies. Throughout other videos, I've also mentioned that I have other vintage cars that I actually set up to race. And this is one of the two that I race. I've got a JrXPro SE. There's a video on my channel of me racing that against an RC10 at an indoor track in Kentville, Nova Scotia. And there's also video, if it's not on my channel, it's on one of the channels that's featured on my channel, of a vintage class race held at my own personal backyard track. And this car and my JrXPro SE were in that race. One time I was racing, I had ready to race a Pro SE and an RC10 Championship Edition that I had more or less turned into a team car. So this car broke way back then in probably 2022. And I never got around to fixing it. Well, I tried to fix it right away, but Sabula Tech stopped shipping to Canada. They have a lot of vintage Losi stuff. And I just went on with, they stopped shipping, so I just put it on the shelf and said I'll get back to that later. And fast forward to my Big Brew project, and while scouring eBay for Big Brew parts, I decided to check out, see what I could find for Team Losi parts. So I was able to locate a pin set for the JrXPro, JrX2, Pro SE. They all use the same pins, and they're all here except for the king pin for the steering. We've got the front steering block pin. We've got the front A-arm hinge pin. And then we've got the ones for the back for the hinge pin on the I'll call them C and D blocks. The other pins missing are the pins to hold the rear hubs on. That's okay. These are the ones that I'm missing. Way back during the mandates and the lockdowns, I had started to get back into RC and was going crazy on eBay buying vintage Losi buggies. I just stumbled upon maybe the Pro SE, and then I started buying parts lots and maybe another. Yeah, I bought a Pro mostly, and it actually came with the box, and I didn't know that it came with the original box, so that was super cool. So that is on the shelf, and it's featured in the video that I made about the Pro Shelf Queen. And I had enough parts and buggies that I had two JrXPros, one for the shelf, one for the track, and one JrXPro SE for the track. And I was able to build another complete car out of spare parts that I had. And foolishly, I went and flipped it on eBay. And I never should have, because, man, it was a bunch of parts. And if I was going to run these, it's nice to have parts. And here you go, case in point. I broke a hinge pin and didn't have any. It wasn't even that bad of a crash, and it broke. So all this time it's been sitting there on the shelf waiting to get repaired. This body is actually an original vintage body, rather than use the original body on my Pro Shelf Queen. It was cut out kind of differently here. So and it was unpainted and everything, but it was really scratched up bad inside and out. So I just said the heck with it, and I painted it and used it on my runner. So let's have a look inside and see what I got going on here. These were always a pain up front. There you go. So it's a mixture of new and old. So up front, I have I never ever broke one of these front bulkheads when I was a kid, but I broke one as an adult racing. I bought one of the 3D printed ones off of eBay. That was absolute hot junk. So they have a brace kit. I think it's A&G. I'm not sure who makes this brace kit. So you got an aluminum brace that holds the front pins together, little spacer there, and pins may have to be longer. I think it comes, yeah, it comes with its own pins. See, I'm missing a E-clip on that one. So this pin, or this front bulkhead brace, definitely a must-have if you're going to race these vintage buggies, because these parts, especially these bulkheads, are hard to come by. I bought aftermarket carbon fiber front and rear shock tower. Somebody is cutting them out at home and making them on eBay. You can see the front body mount hole here is not centered. This is cut out kind of rough, whatever. They're not expensive and they do the job. And you're not using original parts. So if they break, it's kind of a shame to break an original part, especially if you're trying to restore one for the shelf. So these look different from the factory originals. Factory originals was just flat black like the chassis. The aftermarket ones are a carbon fiber weave type look to them. On this runner, I've kept the original ball links, the ball cups, the balls, the links, they're all original. The steering is original. I believe my Pro SE has the steering with the ball bearings in these bell cranks. This servo may have been on this chassis when I got it, so I just left it there. It's actually an original FP S148 Futaba servo. Back in the day when you bought a Futaba radio, you almost always got it with two of those servos if you bought like a JR Sport or whatever. The shocks are front shocks off of a Team Associated stadium truck or short course truck, and the rear shocks are the rear shocks off a Team Associated short course or stadium truck, because the rear shocks on this buggy were so long and it needs to have some oil put in there. I was going to put them back together, but at some point for some project I stole the collars off of these shocks. Not sure why I did that, so I'll have to order up a set of shocks. The battery that I run in this car wouldn't fit with the original battery holder. I do have the original battery holder in the parts bin somewhere, but I just bolted down a Velcro strap and it works the very best. I've never had a battery come out while racing. Just slide it into the original component. You can use these Reedy Wolf 2S stick packs. They're shaped like an old NiCad or nickel metal hydride 6-cell pack, and it didn't move. That's it. Just Velcro it in, it doesn't move. For motor and speed control, I went on Bang Good and got a brushless ESC and motor combo made by Race Star. It's a 60 amp. It's not censored. It's sensorless. It's fine. It's totally fine. There's no cogging. I've never had a problem. This one is a little slower than the one that I put in the Pro SE. The KV says 3650 to 2050 KV. I don't know why there's that range, but higher the KV, faster the motor. That's pretty much all I know about brushless motors. Some are in KV, some are in turns. I'm old school. I like to buy my motors in turns, not KV, but whatever. So the gear cover is the gear cover to accommodate the clutch for a Pro SE. So it is, I don't know, I guess it was just on there maybe. The pinion's been taken off. I don't remember why. As I said, this car, talking a long time ago. So, well, it's been sitting around for 2 years. Anyway, fixing it super easy. Just take the appropriate pin here. Take the suspension arm. Put your drive shafts, dog bone, whatever we're calling these things, universal shafts. There's a There we go. Put that in there. Get that shock out of the way. Put the arm back in place. Oh, the arm broke. The arm broke, but I did keep spare arms. So let's fix that. That won't take but a minute. Just these little plastic keepers. They have a tab on them. Just pull them off by the tab. And if it doesn't want to come off by the tab, just push it off from the other side. There we go. There. Pull that pin out. Okay. And that was a right arm. So here's a right arm. Oh, make sure you put it in the same hole. You can actually adjust your hub height. I have the hubs all the way up. A lot of traction on these old school cars on my track. My track was treated with calcium and oil. So the traction on my backyard track wasn't half bad, to be honest. So, oops. Push these little retaining clips back in. There. And we'll talk about the wheels and tires that I use on these cars. They were, I'm pretty sure they're 3D printed, but they're incredibly well done if they are 3D printed. Okay. Now, find the hole on your prom night. There we go. Push that pin in a little bit so that I can get the E-clips on there. There. So I'll put the E-clips on there later. My 440 screw in the middle on the arm. I've talked about this on my other video with my Pro SE, or my JrXPro rather, about all the adjustability that was on these cars that I did not know was there. All these different holes for all the different shock positions. You could actually do a lot of tuning to these cars that I didn't know was even a thing. Of course, I was like 14 years old and then 16 years old when I was racing. We just built them as according to the manual with the box stock setup, and away we went. But so much adjustability on the hub. You can change your roll centers. You can change your camber gain by changing the positions of the rear camber link. You can shorten it, lengthen it. There's a hole on the inside here. There's 4 more on the rear bulkhead there. There's, I don't know, like 10 holes on the rear hub. A lot of adjustment. Shocks. I mean, there's 9 holes on the tower and 5 holes on the arm. So you could really, chase your tail at the track trying to figure out the best shock position to get steering or corner grip, whatever. The wheels. Look at that. Somebody is making wheels that still work with the pin. Now, I've done both. I have, as a matter of fact, on my Pro SE, I use a Team Associated hex hub. 12 millimeter? No, 12 millimeter seems too big. I don't know. Whatever the standard hub is for Team Associated cars, I just put it onto the axle, and the narrowest one, because it does take up a bit of room. It gives you a wider track. But anyway, in doing so, in using, let me show you one. Pretty sure I got some in here. Yeah. Now these are, here we go. And number 7. So this is a 7 millimeter hub, meaning it's 7 millimeters wide, high, whatever. It says 7 millimeter on it right there. So I would put these right onto that axle, and then I could use modern 2.2 rims. And the reason why you would want to do that if you're racing is because you want to use modern tires. I mean, if you were trying to buy vintage tires, that would just be ridiculous. Cost too much, and they probably wouldn't have all that much traction. Mind you, back in the day, the Team Losi X pattern tires were great. So these came out of the UK, and they work with the original axle and pin. There's a pin mold. The wheel is molded for the drive pin, and I don't know if you get them in other colors or not. Wouldn't matter. I prefer white anyway. But in getting these rims, they have that JrX2 look, but they're 2.2, so you can put actual modern tires on there. These are Proline hole shots in M4 compound. I also have another set here that I need to clean. They're with Proline blockades. So depending on track conditions, sometimes blockades, always hole shots. Hole shots always seems to be the answer when you're driving outside in New Brunswick. So anyway, guys, I'm going to keep putting this thing together. And, well, together as far as getting the shock collars replaced. And anyway, I'll get it put back together so that I can run it now that I have the pin. Because I didn't have the pin, I must have started to scavenge parts off of it. As I say, the pinions off of it. And I thought it was just shocks or thought it was just the springs for the rear shocks, but it was in fact the collars as well as the springs. So it'll be back together eventually so that I can run it in the backyard. There's not enough people around here that have vintage cars ready to go to actually have a vintage class. There's a really cool, practically an 8-scale track in Charlotte, not far from where I live. I'd like to turn some laps on that track with my vintage cars just cause. So maybe we'll get some video of that for the channel for the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you like vintage cars as much as I do. And until next time, take care.